I'm sure a lot of you have heard the saying, hard times create strong men create good times, and good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And that's a quote that has obviously gone throughout history as a philosophical debate of what the societies actually look like and how they actually have up and down periods based on the actual period that they're in, whether it's hardship or whether they're suffering from economic collapse or whatever it may be. The phrase is actually often a quote, quoted and attributed to author G. Michael Hoff, and it suggests that societies actually move through cycles of hardship and prosperity and have a constant cycle, rotating door more or less of how each of these society functions and how they face these different types of hardships. But the quote gained popularity online during cultural debates whenever you talk about some of the economic collapses of recent years or some of the different social movements or social drives that have created sort of different political climates that have often exacerbated what strong men or strong population is in reference to the actual society that is being led at that current time. Many historians argue that it oversimplifies complex social dynamics, which can be true. It is a very simplistic idea whenever you actually take the quote out of, or as a generalized statement as a whole, but I don't think that makes it any less true. And I think the question that we have to ask is, does history actually follow generational cycles in the sense of having strong generational growth versus harder generational crises? And I think that whenever you look at something like the Great Depression, it produced one of the most resilient generations, and it forced people to actually work for what they earned and to constantly drive themselves into the ground, more or less. But that made them more hardened and more sturdy and more connected overall as well. As you saw, a lot of times you actually saw during the Great Depression, the nuclear family actually exploded significantly. And then you go into eras like World War II, where mobilization reshaped global industry and society as a whole, and America came together with such a strong emphasis on being able to back this war and to help the good guys, which was the Americans for them. And they are actually known as the greatest generation because they became known for their sacrifice and discipline. And you look at a lot of that and you compare such as the military for today's standards compared to back then. Today, the military, not necessarily now, but maybe over the past 6 years, it's kind of started shifting back a little bit towards the more aggressive style military when it comes to the training, but they have the relevancy of like these stress cards that have been implemented where if people get too stressed during training, they can hold them up, and they'll be excused from the exercise or whatever it may be. I don't know the ins and outs of it. This is just kind of what I've gathered from some of my friends that have been in the military, but you look at something like that, and then you look at some of the different trainings that you saw back in the boot camps back in World War II. They were sending 18-year-old kids out into these war-torn lands that just were of the battle or D-Day, the Battle of Normandy, and all these different the Battle of Iwo Jima, all these highly contested battles that are just fraught with these young 17, 18-year-old kids who during that time were trained and pushed to their upper limits because this is the exact type of enemy they were going to face. They were going to face an enemy that wasn't just going to give you a stress-free situation and let you walk away. No, they were going to face an enemy that was trying to destroy them, trying to annihilate them, eliminate them. And they wanted to be able to come back home and survive. They knew that possibility was there, that they may not be able to do that, but that obviously forced our military into the sense of having to shape a mentally strong fortitude within these young men to the point where they weren't just going to turn tail and run away, because obviously that was going to cost them in the battle. Every man counted in these battles. And I think that economic crisis often often drove innovation as well, for people to actually find new ways and new ideas to circumvent the economic situations and the economic crisis that they're facing. Therefore, it gave people a chance to be able to exacerbate their own dreams or their own fantasies and ideas and actually go out there and not feel scared to produce something out there or put something out there, because they knew it was something that most likely not get rejected, because people were looking for any kind of solution at those point in times. And I think that the problem with today's society is we'll go even a little bit early, 9/11. After 9/11, I would say that was the closest society-wise that our country came to in total unison. When it came to whether it was Democrat, Republican, male, female, whatever it may be, we all came together under the banner of being America, and understanding that this heinous attack on our nation was something that we had to understand, that we had to put our differences aside and we had to handle. Otherwise, if we had just let it go or whatever it may be, it was just going to become a null and void point, and then more people would be apt to attack us and see us as a weak society. So our strength grew through our actual togetherness and cohesiveness that we formed in that time. Obviously, that has significantly separated since then, but I think that whenever you talk about these hard times that create stronger men, you look at even just the many early on history, from the times of the Romans or the times of the Greeks, all the way up to just the Dark Ages and the Industrial Revolutions and everything. People back then were not complicit with this idea of, I just got to de-stress from work, or I just have to take a break, or I have to. No, that was not a thing. Like, you couldn't just take 25 breaks a day because you felt like you just needed it or you deserved it. You were forced. You were pushed into hard labor back then, and it made people a lot more hardened. Now, whether that's good whenever it comes to the actual emotional connection to their families and stuff like that, obviously is debatable. But you can't argue that it didn't shape a harder, more stern, and more focused and driven society as a whole, because it did. And the problem with today's society, I've been trying to get to this point for a minute, but the problem with today's society is we just want everything handed to us, and because we had started getting everything handed to us. You look at the millennials, for instance, we're kind of this group that was on the end of the beginning of the social media phase, but the boom of it and the rise of social media as well. And I think social media is also what is attributed to this idea of having a weaker society, because we see everybody else has everything and we become jealous, we become envious, we think we deserve more than that person. All of a sudden, our own pride is taking over in the sense of that we deserve it. And if we don't get it, then we decide, we're just going to give up and not work for it because they're getting it and we're not, and that's not fair. And unfortunately, pride has become that sense of weakness as well, because we think we're so deserving and should be handed things when we really shouldn't. And, social media feigns, obviously, happiness to an extent as well. And the people that just consistently post on social media about all their successes and stuff have their own problems going on, but that's not what people see. People see what they have earned, what they have gathered, and that's all they want that as well. And I think that's helped cause the divide in the sense that when you have people who actually wanted or were originally cohesive and working together and well, and you let pride or you let humility go out the door, and you think you earned something or deserve something better than somebody else, because that's just how people think. We think selfishly. Then you're gonna not feel that your work is any more important, or it's less important. Therefore, you're not gonna want to push towards it and move towards it. And not only that, we have the highest rate of any kind of mental disorders in history of mankind in general. All these different mental disorders that have been exacerbated out, and whether that's a result of the food that we're eating or the medicine that we're being given or whatever it may be, not trying to get conspiracy theorist based, but whatever we've been handed through the puppetry of the world or the New World Order, whatever you want to call it, to actually dim us down and weaken us significantly. If you want to go that route, it's worked. And this heaviness of mental disorders has caused weakness within the society as a whole, in the sense of that people now use these as more often than not. There are real mental disorders, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's not, but a lot of people use some of their quote unquote mental disorders as a way to get out of jail free card, or to live off the government and not work for something, or to get whatever they want handed to them. And they use these to their advantage to be lazy. And that's because people don't want to actually work for things anymore. They don't want to put forth the effort. They don't want to actually drive forward. And that's because we don't have an enemy except ourselves right now. And unfortunately, whenever you look at economic collapses, the enemy of those times are obviously it's just the economy in general. So people push forward to try and push into that out of that economic struggle. Or if you have wartime, you have enemies that are during the wartime as well. Obviously other countries or whatever it may be, and that pushes people to unify together around the same banner of the American flag. Well, now, setting aside even the political landscape, a lot of people just have left that kind of ideology or that kind of thought process in the past, in all honesty, and in history, because they don't see it as something that's fundamental to their core nature. And therefore, even if we were to be presented with a unified challenge, I don't know if most of society would come together like they used to. And that's because everybody has become so self-absorbed with their own interest that it has caused us as a society to collapse in on ourselves, because we aren't getting what we want. And it's the current state of society is all about me rather than we. And that's the problem. It's no longer we. We're all thinking about ourselves. We're only focusing on our own ideas and thoughts. Some theorists propose that generational cycles happen about every 80 to 100 years. I would agree with that. Now, I'm not saying it's not eventually going to come back to fruition where we can come back as a unified country due to some sort of situation or issue. But I think that different generations obviously respond differently to different crises. Obviously, our grandparents and great-grandparents that were a part of World War II, you meet a lot of them and you talk to a lot of them, and they really are not, they don't hold these standards of laziness. They worked their butts off until they were almost 80 years old, because that's all they knew. We have been handed so much and been given so much that now what we know is the idea that we can skate our way through life and we can just get whatever we want at certain times if we have the right mindset. If we have the distilled or the set aside mindset of manipulating the system. And if we manipulate things to our own way, then we'll get what we want. It's all about manipulation for us as a society now, rather than actual just genuine hardworking labor. Now, people have been shaped by hardship and often prioritize stability, which is totally understandable, because everybody wants to be stable in their finances, in their marriage, in their eating habits, in their routines, whatever it may be. They want to be stable and they want to feel secure, and that is good. However, I think people have started to feign stability for laziness, and they just want to just get by, not actually be fully stable in their situation and live comfortably. They just want to get by, because what they want to do is more important than what is good for them. What they see, the priorities have shifted. We no longer think that bills are important. We no longer think that paying for stuff or earning our way through this capitalism is effective, or whatever it may be. And a lot of people have lost, and I would say not to any error of their own, just to this is like the actual system as a whole. It feels like the American dream in that sense has started to fall away and out of the grasp of actual people. And we can talk about wages and stuff all day, and generational wages and what inflation and all that. But I think overall, my main focus on us is that our society has collapsed in the sense of actual humility, that we don't exhibit that anymore, and we don't produce humility because we don't feel the need to. We believe the world should bow to us rather than us work our way through the world. I gotta say, younger generations are gonna probably prioritize identity and fulfillment over humility and hard work. And when we talk about identity, I think that understanding that people want to find where they belong in the world or what they want to do, but it's all about fulfilling their own ego too, to an extent. And I'm not saying everybody, obviously, but I think that, you know, the ego-driven society, that's the best way to say it. We're an ego-driven society. We want to be the best, look the best, play the best, have the best friends, have the most friends. It's all about quantity over quality for us. And unfortunately, that doesn't jive well with the real world. And, you know, obviously, rising geopolitical tensions contribute to this debate as well, whatever it becomes between Democrats and Republicans and whatever it may be. But I think that history does show cycles, but rarely predictable patterns, in the sense that we haven't really ever seen a more selfish society than we have right now. And I mean, I gotta ask you guys personally, do you think that we're entering a new global hardship era if we're not already in it? And if that's the case, is it going to be one of those where we can shift back to actually becoming a strong society, to the point where we can actually have cohesiveness and we think about more than just ourselves? Are we able to think about the other people or the neighbor or the village, as you could say? Everybody used to say it takes a village. You don't ever hear that anymore nowadays. You don't ever have these close-knit friend groups and families that actually work together. Everybody just goes off on their own. Friendships fall by the wayside every now and then. I know plenty of people that are older, you know, my parents and my grandparents' age, that have friends for over 50 years. And you don't see that nowadays. Everybody is all just constantly shifting friend groups, shifting what they want, shifting where they are in life, what they're going to do. And you don't actually develop a set foundational village anymore. And that's the problem too. We don't feel like we have people that we can rely on, because we aren't reliable to other people as well. So how can we expect them to rely on us and us to rely on them, but them to not rely on us? I think that some crises do produce innovation and unity to an extent, but other crises do lead to collapse or authoritarianism. And I'm not talking specifically about America, but just in general, when societies become weak and we become like sheep that just drag our feet and just go to day-to-day routines and, you know, in and out. It's a revolving door. We get up, we go to work, we eat our dinner, we go to bed. Get up, go to work, eat our dinner, and go to bed. Get up, go to work, eat dinner, and go to bed. It's a revolving door. Nothing ever changes because we don't want it to change, because we like that false stability, I guess you could call it, because it's not real stability. It's just habit. It's actually kind of a sickening habit that a lot of Americans have come to. That's all they do. And instead of actually like experiencing new things, going out and doing new things, learning new things, actually making an effort to grow yourself and start your own thing or develop your own sort of knowledge base through reading, learning, studying, whatever it may be. And I'm talking past schooling. I'm talking about in every sense, in every different kind of field, whatever you may be interested in, or just developing your base knowledge to be able to discuss things with other people. We don't do that anymore. We just want to stick with what we know, and we want to stick with what we're comfortable with. And that's it. We cannot get outside our comfort zone. As a society, we refuse to get outside our comfort zone because we have become so dependent on the comfort to run a stable life that we are afraid to do anything to move forward or change it. And that's why nobody is willing to take initiative. Not nobody, but most people are not willing to take initiative to start their own thing, start their own business, start their own group, go out and make an actual change in the world for whatever it may be. So, you know, contextually speaking about all of this, society as a whole, I still think this holds true. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times, and good times create soft, weak societies. I'm not saying we shouldn't have good times, but it is a byproduct. And if we want to break the cycle, whenever we are in good times, we need to be just as innovative and just as fearless as we are in hard times. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time.